wasn't going to read all that. Is everybody's kind of familiar with how he tricked Esau? Well, technically, he tricked Isaac because he put on the sheepskin and all that on him, and his mom, although his mom was bigger into it than he was, he got it all set up, and he stole the birthright or the blessing from Esau. Esau sold him the birthright earlier. So now Esau's saying he's going to kill him. You know, his dad's not going to be around much longer, and then he's going to just kill Jacob. So Rebecca talks to Isaac, and they're sending Jacob to go to her brother and hopefully find a wife over there in that land. So now he's heading there. God met a dream with him and told him he was the God of Abraham and all that. So in his dream, so I always, we're talking about prayer, what's going on. So now Jacob had a dream where God's telling him what he's going to do for him. And then it starts in 16. Jacob awaked out of his sleep, and he said, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I knew it not." And he was afraid and said, "How dreadful is the place! This is none other but the house of God, and this is the gate to heaven." And Jacob arose early in the morning and took the stone that he had put for his pillow, and he set it for a pillar and poured oil upon it. Then he called the name of the place Bethel, but the name of the city was called Luz at the first. Now you would think with what he did here that he's already come to the conclusion he's going to serve God, right? That's the way I took it when the first time I read through it. And then you hear, and Jacob vowed a vow saying, "If God will be with me and will keep me in his way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and raiment to put on, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then shall the Lord be my God." Yeah, it's the one thing about Jacob. He wasn't like bad. He was conniving, won't get me wrong there. But he wasn't like what you would think criminally vicious or anything like that. When you study him on his wives, the only time you ever hear him raising his voice to one of his wives is when Rebecca demanded him to get her pregnant. Said, "You must give me a son." And he said, "Oh my God." That's the only time you could picture he raised his voice. Other than that, he did whatever they told him. I thought that was kind of unique. So, in that sense, I don't think he was a strong leader type person. And then we go to Genesis 32:7. And we're going to read this for a little bit. Then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and he divided the people that was with him, the flocks and the herds and the camels and the two bands. And he said, "If Esau come to the one company and smite it, then the other company which is left shall escape." And Jacob said, "O God of my father," this is one of the few times that you hear Jacob pray, and usually when he prays, he's scared. "God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, and the Lord which saidst unto me, return to thy country and to thy kingdom or kindred, and I will deal with thee. And I am not worthy the least of all the mercies and of all the truth which thou hast showed unto thy servant. For with my staff I passed over this Jordan, and now I become two bands. Deliver me, I pray thee, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, lest he will come and smite me and the mother of my children. And thou saidst, I will surely do thee good, and make thy seed as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude." So he lodges that night, and then he sends a gift to Esau. But what I thought was strange is if you read further down in there, he separates them. And he put these kids in the front, And Joseph, who he likes the best, and Rachel he keeps in the last section. So he had the handmaids of those went first. So when you read that, it's kind of strange when you think about what was important to him. That's how I take that when I read it. Yes. And then, so he did pray, and it all worked out well for him. I'm not going to read all that. But Esau came, and it's been years. So how many years was he gone roughly? Does anybody know? 20 or 21. It depends on how you read it or how he's saying it. But he worked 7 years for each of the wives. And then I think he says he worked 7 years for his goods. But it could have been 6. But so he's been gone a long time. So Esau would have really had to nurse a grudge. But he came and he was all happy to see him and stuff like that. But it's just kind of strange when you think of when Jacob prays. And then Genesis 45:27. And they told him all the words of... So, now Joseph's been gone. He's been in Egypt. He kind of beat up his brothers for a little while. And then he's sending them all back. When they brought Benjamin, he introduced himself to his brothers and sent them back to go get Jacob. And then I'm always thinking, like if I'm the brothers, thinking, now how are we going to tell Dad we got rid of him? I mean, because from Egypt to wherever he was, there was probably a couple of days' journey. So they had to come up with a story of what they're going to tell Jacob. So they told him all the words of Joseph, which he had said unto them. And when he saw the wagons which Joseph had sent to carry him, the spirit of Jacob their father revived. And Israel said, "It is enough. Joseph, my son, is yet alive. I will go and see him before I die." Now this is the part. So Israel took his journey with all that he had, and he came to Beersheba. So, is he in God's will or God's perfect will at this moment in time? Mm-hmm. He hadn't prayed yet. He just left. And he's going to Egypt. So he's getting ready to pray now. So, and he offered sacrifice unto God of his father Isaac. And God spake unto Israel in a vision of the night, and said, "Jacob, Jacob." And he said, "Here am I." And he said, "I am the God of thy father. Fear not to go down to Egypt, for I will be there to make thee a great nation. I will go down with thee into Egypt, and I will surely bring thee up again, and Joseph shall put his hand upon thine eyes." And Jacob rose from Beersheba, and the sons of Israel carried Jacob their father and their little ones, their wives, in the wagons which Pharaoh had sent to carry him. They took their cattle and their goods, which they had got in the land of Canaan, and they came into Egypt, Jacob and all of his seed. So in my mind, this is a good sign. Not that any of us would hear to do something, we go and start doing it, and then say, "Well, Lord, is this all right?" You know. So if you're doing it, let's say it's something God wants you to do. But if you're doing it without asking, are you really in God's perfect will? You think he felt better after God said go? You know? So, to me, that's a good example of what we should do is, before we do something, when would be a good time to pray? Yeah. You know, I hate to say that I've ever said, "Lord, I made a mess of this. What are you going to do?" You know, before I ever... That's the first time I'm praying about the thing that I messed up. Right. Well, no, I'm not talking about I'm going to have bacon and eggs this morning. I'm not. I'm talking about, yeah, I'm getting ready to buy this pretty big thing here. Should I do it? Do I really need it? Or is it just, ooh, that's pretty? It's something you just want because it's got a lot of bells and whistles. That's kind of where I'm talking about. Huh? Well, well, only in the sense that I asked for journey mercies. When I was over the road, every morning before I took off, my prayer was that I wouldn't kill nobody with that truck. I apparently answered it because I never killed nobody. I was never in a wreck. I made a stop sign do that once. Oh, wow, that needed more room. But I never had anything serious happen. So, and I prayed every morning before I took off that I wouldn't hurt nobody, do anything like that. And I had a guy I was training, and he's all, I said, if everybody that does something is going to make you want to kill them, you probably should look for another job. Because that's going to, you're on the road, you're driving 10 hours a day. How many times do you think somebody's going to do something that could irritate you? All right. But I said, you just can't do that. You got to mellow out, or you're going to have a long career. If you're that mad because somebody cut you off. But, it irritates you. But not a lot you can do. And so now he went there and he got to see all of his kids. So I believe at first he went, and then I always wonder, people say you got to make sure you're in God's will. And this is, people say, do you ever question things? I thought, well, yeah, I have weird thoughts. So can you ever be out of God's will? Can you ever be out of God's will? Are we strong enough to do something God didn't want us to do or allow us to do? Right. Not saying that's His will, but right. Well, I'm not disagreeing that, because I think about that, but He allows us to do whatever we want to do. So in the big picture sense, in my train of thought, kind of, that would be His will for us to make decisions. Now, the decisions we make, He may be consequences that we're not looking forward to because of them. It's sort of like, and I struggle with this one. You're not supposed to, like David, you can't do anything to the Lord's anointed. So who's the Lord's anointed in this country? Yeah. And I struggle with not saying, like, he's an idiot. That just, because it's not like, oh, man, God was surprised when he got brought in there. And then it's really weird sometimes when I think about what's going on, and I struggle because I don't ever want to see the United States fail. But somebody like Obama, Biden, or Harris really would be that would lead us to nothing as a country. So, and eventually, as I understand the scriptures, we're going to be nothing as a country. Right. So it's sort of like God's sovereignty. There's nothing we can do that can break God's sovereignty. It's like people that say, I've lost my salvation. Why'd you break the seal? Because if we're sealed unto the day of redemption, how did he break the seal? You know, I don't think people think out. Yes, because in John, I think it's chapter 10, it says, no man's able to pluck them out of my Father's hand. So if you're able to pluck yourself out of God's hand, what are you really saying? Is what you just said. I'm stronger than God. Idolism, idolatry type stuff. So that was just it. So I just kind of a sidetracked on God's will or His perfect will. And now go to Joshua 5:13. All right. I won't be able to figure this out in a minute. Now they got across. I wasn't going to read all that. They got across. They did what God said. They put the rocks in the river. And they came across the Jordan. Now they're on this side of the Jericho. They're on this side by there. They've all been circumcised again, I believe, or that's going to happen. But now he's getting ready for the fight. And it came to pass when Joshua was by Jericho that he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, there stood a man over against him with a sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went unto him and said unto him, art thou for us or our adversary? And I love this answer. He said, nay. But as captain of the host of the Lord, I have now come. Now, is he for Joshua, or is Joshua better be for him? Oh, yeah, here. And Joshua fell on his face to the earth, and did worship, and said unto him, what saith my Lord unto his servant? And the captain of the Lord's host said unto Joshua, loose thy shoe from off thy foot, for the place where thou standest is holy ground. And Joshua did so. And then, you know the story of Jericho, and you know, and sometimes you think, and I wonder what he's thinking. He's going back because he got told this plan by himself. And now he's going to go tell it to the military leaders or whatever you were going to call them back then. But they actually followed the Lord here. So Joshua got direction for the Lord to do what he is supposed to do here. And he did it. Now, he had a great victory, right? Jericho, the walls all fell down. And then Joshua 7. But the children of Israel committed a trespass in the cursed thing, for Achan, the son of Carmi, the son of Zabdi, the son of Zerah, of the tribe of Judah, took the accursed thing, and the anger of the Lord was kindled against the children of Israel. And Joshua sent men to Jericho, to Ai, which is beside Bethaven, on the east side of Bethel, and spake unto them, saying, go up and view the country. And the men went up and viewed Ai. And they returned to Joshua and said unto him, let not all the people go up, but let about 2,000 or 3,000 men go up and spite Ai, and make not all the people go labor thither, for they are but few. So they went up thither of the people about 3,000, and they fled before the men of Ai. So what's wrong with what they did here? Yeah, who did they not ask? Which I thought was strange. Are we ever guilty after a great victory to just think, well, he's on our side, we can do whatever we want, and we'll go from there? And they ran, and they smote about 36 men, for they chased them for the gate unto the cherubim, and smote them in the going down before the hearts of the people melted, and they became as water. And then, I always get a kick out of this part here. He's like he's mad, not at himself. And Joshua rent his clothes and fell on the earth upon his face before the ark of the Lord until the evening time. And he and the elder of the Israels and put dust upon their heads. And Joshua said, Alas, O Lord God, wherefore hast thou at all brought this people over Jordan to deliver us into the hand of the Amorites to destroy us? Would to God we had been content and dwell on the other side of Jordan. And the Lord, what shall I say when Israel turns their backs before the enemies? For the Canaanites and all the inhabitants of the land shall hear of it, and shall invern us around, and cut off our name from the earth. So, who's he blaming? Yeah. Who was the first person that ever blamed God? Yeah, that woman that you gave me. I was doing all right till you made her. You know, I'm not sure what all he was getting at, but now this is where "suck it up, buttercup" comes from. It's not the exact words, that was a paraphrase. And the Lord said unto Joshua, Get thee up, wherefore thou liest thou thus upon thy face? Israel has sinned, and they have also transgressed my covenant, which I commanded them, for they have even taken of the accursed thing, and have also stolen and disassembled also. They have put it even among their own stuff. Therefore the children of Israel could not stand before their enemies, but turned their back before the enemies, because they were accursed. Neither will I be with you anymore, except you to destroy the accursed thing among you. So when would have been a good time for him to first ask the Lord? Before they went to Ai. So you think he's learned his lessons now? Yeah, go to chapter 9. And this 2 through 15. So these guys are there, and they're coming, and they're going to fight with Joshua. So now they've been beating up everybody. Joshua's been winning and doing really good. And when in verse 3, and when the inhabitants of Gibeon heard that what Joshua had done unto Jericho and the Ai, they did work willingly, and went and made as if they had been ambassadors, and took old sacks upon their asses, and wine bottles old and rent, and bound up, and old shoes, and clothed upon their feet, and old garments upon them. And all the bread in their provision was dry and moldy. I always wondered, do they save their bread when it's dry and moldy? That they were able to get it. And the men of Israel said unto the Hivites, Peradventure you dwell among us. How shall we make a league with you? And they said unto Joshua, We are thy servants. And Joshua said unto them, Who are you, and from whence come ye? And they said unto him, From a very far country thy servants are come, because of the name of the Lord thy God. For we have heard the fame of him, and all that he did in Egypt, and all that he did to the two kings of the Amorites that were beyond Jordan, the Sihon king of Heshbon, and Og king of Bashan, which is Ashtaroth. Wherefore our elders and inhabitants of our country spake unto us, saying, Take victuals with you for the journey, and go meet them, and say unto them, We are your servants, therefore make you a league with us. This is our bread that we took for our provision of our houses on the day we came forth to go unto you, but now behold, it is dry and moldy. And these bottles of wine we were filled were new, and behold, they are rent, and these garments are our shoes become old by reason of very long journey. And the men took their vigils, and asked not counsel of the mouth of the Lord. So they just had the problem with Ai. And to me, this isn't just a little decision. This is like a peace treaty. And you would have think Joshua would have learned and did. But he didn't. And so they make peace with him. And then the Lord says, No, you're going to guard them now. You said you were going to do it in the name of the Lord. So you have nothing to do but fight for them. And they made them their servants and stuff like that. And they all agreed. And in that sense, it worked out. But when would have been a better time for him to say something? Yeah, especially when it's something big. So then the last, Luke 18. This is kind of interesting how he starts it out. So we're going to start at verse 9. I had 10 just because it's explaining why it's about the parable. And he spake this parable unto them, unto certain which trust in themselves that they were righteous and despise others. So this is what they call the Pharisee and the publican. Two men went up to the temple to pray. The one a Pharisee and the other a publican. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself, God, I thank you that I am not as other men, extortioner, unjust, adulterers, or even as this publican. I fast twice a week. I give tithes of all that I possess. And the publican, standing far off, would not lift up so much as his eyes unto heaven, but smote upon his breast, saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. And I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone that exhausted himself shall be abased, and him that humbled himself shall be exalted. I've always had people ask me, there's no salvation prayer in the Bible. That's what this is. So who said that he went down justified from this prayer? Jesus. So who am I to say he's not going to heaven? Not the Pharisee. I wouldn't want to be him. Because the Pharisee's attitude was, wow, Lord, you're really lucky you got me. Look at all this stuff I'm doing for you. You'd falter if I wasn't down here working for you. That was kind of his, he ain't going to do very well. Because, when you think about the tithes, the tares and the wheat, what would the Pharisee be? Huh? Yeah. Every time I think too highly of myself, I always think of this. I don't ever want to be where I think that highly of myself about what's going on. So, when we pray, we do want to make sure that we're humble before the Lord. We should never pray like that Pharisee did. And the thing that the publican did, he truly understood that without God, he can't do nothing. Because he wants God to have mercy on him as a sinner. He's not saying just be good to me. He says, I'm a sinner, have mercy on me. Because he's in dire straits for that. All right, anybody have any questions? Right. Yeah. Huh?